Welcome back to Orange Hat Reviews, everyone. I hope you are all having a wonderful evening. I will be doing Mystery Review episode 24. Now, this one has been delayed. I am sorry for that. But as I am helping family, I am at my brother's house right now, helping take care of kids while he and his girlfriend are out working and whatnot. So yeah, I get to take care of the little ones. So I moved the stream to tonight instead of the morning because that is when it will be more convenient for me while I am helping family. And yeah, it's more convenient to do these streams at night. And so yeah, until further notice, the streams are going to be tonight instead of tomorrow, or at night instead of in the morning. So I placed out the hints for this particular versus mystery review. The hints were Alec Rickman. Good to see you, Netcat. So yes, the hints were Alec Rickman, River, and Extended Edition. I gave 3 hints right off the bat for this mystery review. Then I gave the bonus hint of a line from the movie, "Truly, you are a wizard." And then I gave my final hint, which was Fanny Little, who is actually a character in the movie that I will be reviewing. And a couple of people have guessed it. It is indeed Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, but it is the extended edition. Now, extended editions are hit and miss when it comes to certain quality. Memes of Destruction, good to see you. I am doing a mystery review for Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, the extended edition. And yeah, there are some extended editions that actually do very well, add the full context to the story. There are other extended editions that, because of the extended story, there are inconsistencies. I told Professor Peterson he was a pretty good wizard when I met him. Oh, love Prince of Thieves. Not sure if I've seen the extended edition, though. Oh, believe me, there are some revelations in the extended edition that actually is like, well, okay, I didn't see that coming. I mean, that's actually pretty interesting stuff. So yeah, with the extended edition, it is simply 12 additional minutes. However, this extended edition does have a part or a plot point in this movie that does create a very big inconsistency, because it involves one of the scribe that talks to the sheriff of Nottingham. And, well, the witch, Mortiana, hasn't cut out that guy's tongue. Now, in the theatrical edition, the scribe never lost his tongue. So, yeah. That is one of the small errors that we will get into. How you doing, Charles Moon? Good to see you. Thank you all for coming in and tuning in. So, yes, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, Extended Edition. This film has its many detractors. I mean, we all know that Mel Brooks basically made fun of this movie in the biggest way when he did Carrie Elwes. He's like, unlike other Robin Hoods, I can speak with an English accent. So yes, there was the whole Americanized Robin Hood plot of this movie. And other people say that this movie is not as good as others. And I'm like, honestly, this is one of the best Robin Hoods I have seen. And I have seen many of them. I've seen The Men in Tights. I've seen Prince of Thieves. I've seen the one with Sean Connery. I've seen the one with Russell Crowe. I've seen a bunch of them. This one I actually like the best, subjectively. So, Yes. Prince of Thieves Extended is just a raise in rating. It goes from PG-13 to PG, and it has 12 minutes of additional footage. And believe me, there's a reason why they upped the rating to PG, because let's just say that, or actually that's a step down in rating, but I believe it would have actually gone up to R, if I'm to be completely honest, because they do have some more adult themes in this movie, which I will touch on later, or as we get to it. So yes, this movie is directed by Kevin Reynolds, stars Kevin Costner, Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio, Alan Rickman, Morgan Freeman, Christian Slater during his heartthrob days, Michael Wincott, Nick Brimble, Michael McShane, with a very special appearance by Sean Connery, and Geraldine McEwen as the Witch Mortiana. The score of this film is an amazing masterpiece. You hear this score, or if you hear this score, you probably won't remember where it comes from, but it is very good. If you haven't seen or heard the score, it really is one that is just, it touches you, you know. And the composer is Michael Kamen, also with some help from Bryan Adams for the song All for Love, or All for One and All for Love. So, or no, what was the song that he did? Sorry. Everything I Do, rather. I'm sorry. All for One and All for Love was the Three Musketeers. So, the opening of this movie opens with that beautiful score. And I gotta say that the score, like I said, it is a very touching score. It's a very high-spirited score. And it just truly hits you in great ways. Men in Tights and Prince of Thieves are next to each other on my DVD racks. Nice, Netcat. Now, the beginning of this movie basically takes you back with an opening text. 800 years ago, Richard the Lionheart, King of England, led the Third Great Crusade to reclaim the Holy Land from the Turks. Most of the young English noblemen who flocked to his banner never returned home. And then the movie begins in 1194 AD in Jerusalem. The fate of Thieves, as Robin and his friend Peter and others are strung up and losing their hands. Basically, they were thieves trying to survive at the time. And when they show these people basically slicing hands, they show hands getting sliced. I mean, not real hands being sliced, but they basically make it look like a person's real hand got sliced off. They strap the dude down, put a strap here, holding his hand so he can't pull away. And then you see the guy pulling this, or pull the hand away. It's graphic, let's just say that. And then you see Kevin Costner looking basically like a caveman with a long beard, long hair, and his friend who is barely alive because of starvation and whatnot. And he's like, "You won't survive, Peter." He's not, or they're not interested in the truth. And so he goes down to, or he goes into the block, and these are against the Moors and the Saracens and the English to reclaim Jerusalem. This was during the Third Crusade. And the big Saracen sword, which is the one slicing off the hands, is actually seen later on in the movie with the character of Azim, who is also introduced, Morgan Freeman's character, in this scene. So Robin puts his hand down, and he's like, "This is English courage." And so they strap his hand, and they go to slice it, and he yanks the guy forward, and the guy ends up getting his, not just his hand, but his arm, half of his arm cut off. And it's a good escape system. And so you see Morgan Freeman save Robin's life by telling him that there's somebody behind him. And he's like, "My sentence is death. must bring me. He's like, why should we trust you? Because yes, at that time, racial tensions as well as religious tensions were very high. And he tells him, he's like, if you do not let me help you, we are all dead men. So Azim is basically helps them out, and Peter is the brother of the maid Marian. Now, the acting in this movie was very well done. Each scene has its great moments, and the death of Peter is actually one of the inconsistencies of this film, because he gets an arrow in the back, and then he tells them as he's very close to dying, please take this ring to my sister Marian, protect her with your life. And he has Robin swear on it. So he then tells them to go, and he takes the big sword, the Saracen sword, and charges those who were basically sent to apprehend him. You see that Azim and Robin are breaking into some fruit, eating and whatnot, and then they got to get on his way to England. And because Azim was saved by Robin, he has a vow that he must fulfill, which is to save his life in return. It is a very honorable and noble vow. This is not unheard of, and honor vows are taken very seriously in a lot of different cultures and religions. So, but the continuity issue of this problem is where Peter took the sword. How does Azim get it later on? Yeah, the film goes does a small jump, but first it goes to Locksley Castle, where Lord Locksley, played by Brian Blessed, he is writing a letter to one of the people who made it back from Richard's Crusade. And he's inquiring about his son, who they did not part on good terms. They are estranged, essentially. And while going out to protect his land under false pretenses, the Sheriff of Nottingham, as well as his fellow devil worshippers, basically kills Robin's father. And then we get the jump to 4 months later. Robin and Azim make landfall in England, and Robin tries forcing Azim to renounce his vow, and Azim shows his combat skill. He's like, please you go home. I do not need your help. He's like, I must fulfill my vow. And he's like, thought you'd say that. So he has somebody attack him. How you doing, Junebug? Good to see you. And after he dispatches him without even drawing a weapon, he looks at the others and they back off and they grab their wounded and head back. And he's like, you understand I had to try, right? And I would have succeeded. Morgan Freeman plays off of Kevin Costner very well in this movie. Now, moving on. Hold on one second. Yes, Azim and Robin are talking while they make their way inland to Robin's home. And he asks Azim why he was essentially arrested. And good to see you, Jazz Carpenter. How you doing? I'm discussing the extended edition to Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. So yes, he tells him Robin Hood basically annoys him with the needling and questions. He's like, it was for a woman, wasn't it? She was married and yada yada. What was her name? And Azim has to pray, because he is a Muslim, And he's like, is there no sun in this cursed country? Which way is east? Her name. East. Her name. Yasmina. That way. And he points out east. And he's like, are you sure? I know this land are with my eyes closed. Like, we're 5 miles from my home. So then, while Azim starts to pray, Robin sees people on horseback chasing a child with some dogs. And we get introduced to Wolf, full name Wolf Little, but he doesn't know that yet. Robin doesn't. And Michael Wincott's character, Guy of Gisborne, and the sheriff's men, who, when the kid crosses a border wall or a border ruin wall and climbs a tree, that's when Robin appears when they're about to cut the tree down. He's like, what's going on? I mean, are you chasing the devil himself? Oh, it's just a kid. So why are you guys chasing a kid with dogs? And Guy of Gisborne is like, this has nothing to do with you, stranger. You might as well, or just move along. And he tells him it has everything to do with me. This is my land and my tree, and whatever's in it belongs to me. I mean, there's some clever, witty writing, and Kevin Costner plays his return to England when he was in Jerusalem. He was a very serious person. When he got to England, he kind of re-engaged his noble privilege, so to speak. He seemed more uppity, or not uppity, but high-spirited and, well, privileged in a way. So he then, or Guy of Gisborne, basically then learns that he's Robin of Locksley. He's like, I'm Robin of Locksley. Welcome home. Kill him. And, well, they fail at that, and he tries to get Azim to join in but Azim is praying, and then he's like, ugh. And so after he tells Guy of Gisborne, you go back to the sheriff and tell him that that anyone on my land is under my protection. Unaware of what happened to his father and his father's servant, Duncan. Now, the boy comes down and he's like, is it true that you killed a deer? And the boy's like, hundreds of them, and then just runs off. So then he goes after Azim and he's like, why did you not come when I asked you to help? He's like, I will choose when it is time to renew or to fulfill my vow. I will not let you choose for me. Freedom is a very big theme in this movie. It plays with Azim's vow and fulfillment, as well as the people who were under the yoke of tyranny from Nottingham, how they wanted freedom, but the taxes got too high, double the taxes, triple the taxes, and all that stuff. So we then I should also touch on Michael Wincott. Michael Wincott has a voice that is very well known in the 90s, he really made his name in the 90s, and I gotta say that voice he just has a very menacing voice, especially in this movie, because it's just really guttural and growly and raspy. It almost sounds like dude has throat cancer in a way, but his voice, it just works, So then we get to Nottingham Castle, and we see the vanity and debauchery of the Sheriff of Nottingham, played by the brilliant actor Alan Rickman, and also the late actor Alan Rickman. And he just plays a very spoiled character. He has a spoilish and boyish personality that also meshes well with his evil intent and whatnot. So Guy then tells him of Robin Hood, and as they're talking about who Robin Hood's companion, you see an eye hole or a spy hole, and you see the witch's eye through that spy hole, and he then gets rang for portents. So he goes down, and she is reading the boons, so to speak. Like a very grovelly voice for sure. Yes, indeed. So Mortiana is, or has a blue eye and a brown eye, and they call her the witch and whatnot. And so she reads the signs and such. She casts runes, cracks open an egg with blood in it and whatnot, and such. And she's like, I have seen our death, the painted man. He haunts my dreams. You must kill them both. And he understands that that his plan is in motion and needs to basically go through before a certain time period. So then we get to Robin Hood returning to Locksley Castle, which is in ruins since the last time we saw it. Duncan the servant had his eyes put out by Guy of Gisborne, with the witch and the sheriff watching. And he explains the fate of Robin's father, how the justification for killing Locksley was because he was accused of devil worship. Now, in that time, if you were accused of devil worship, you were killed. It was time when religion was a very extreme thing. Religion was basically the law of the land. I mean, the Crusades were fought for a reason, religious superiority. So we then, or you see the look or what they did to Robin's father. They sewed his eyes shut and his mouth shut. They beat the face inward and whatnot. It looked bad. And the way he reacts, it is kind of overly dramatic, and it's almost semi-childish, but it's also shocking. It's basically a shocked reaction. And then when he goes up to Duncan, when Duncan is calling out, and he's like, "Is that you, Master Robin? Is that you?" And he's like, "Are you deaf? Why didn't you cut him down?" I would have if I could see. And he learns that Locksley's land has been forfeit because of the charge of devil worship. Now, when he buries his father, the character shift of Robin after his life is basically flipped upside down, as he even states. He was once vain and privileged, but now he is serious and vengeful, and he even does the very cliche thing, I will not rest until my father's life is avenged, and he cuts his hand open, and he says, I swear it on my own blood. So then they seek refuge at Peter's home to talk to the maid Marian. Now, I love the how they go up to the door and they knock on the door. No more beggars! Slice the thing shut. We're looking for the maid Marian. Is she here? Maybe she is, and maybe she isn't. And they try, and she slides the thing closed on his hands. And so they're getting ready to walk away. So then the woman opens the door. Leave your weapons, just you. She points to Locksley. So then we go in, and Robin plays a little bit with the woman who escorts him in. When she tells him to wait here, he's like, right here? And she's like, right. And gives him a sneer and then walks off. You then see a woman who is pretending to be the maid Marian, which is actually, in truth, her lady in waiting, Sarah. And she tells of how Robin, when they were children, was nothing more than a bully who would never be the man standing before them now. And he's like, I made an oath, or I took an oath to protect you. And she's like, protect me. As you can see, I am well protected here. Because a black knight has basically come behind Robin with a knife. And during this time, or before the fight breaks out, they do cut to the outside where Duncan is talking to Azim. And he's just talking to himself. He's like, curse the Moors and Saracens. If it wasn't for him, or if it wasn't for their kind, Master Robin would have been home. And then he basically inquires to Azim. He's like, what kind of name is Azim? Cornish? Irish? And Azim is looking at him like he just hates him, and he walks up and he says, Moorish. And Duncan's like, it's like, holy shit. It was a really nice moment in this movie. They have great moments when the comedy is right, and when the comedy is perfect or is needed a little bit of levity, they do it very well. So then we get the fight between this Black Knight and Robin, who actually turns out to be Maid Marian. And they're trying to bust the door down, and they bust the door down just as Marian knees him in the groin. He's like, hello, Marian. It really is a hilarious scene. So then they jump to the return of Peter's ring. Now, Marian basically says she doesn't want to go to London, even though she knows the danger is great here, but they have to, but Robin Hood would not leave. He's like, I swore to your brother that I would protect you, and all I remember of you is that you were a bully who burned my hair when we were children. And I'm like, Jesus, that's kind of more than just bullying. Holy shit, you know? So then while we're seeing this, we also see Azim looking at a lens. And then he calls Robin, and he calls him Christian all the time because he is a Christian, where Azim is a Muslim. So he goes and he's like, look, and he hands him a scope that he fashioned out of animal skin and 2 lenses. And then he's like, look, and he sees that Guy of Gisborne is on his way with some more of the sheriff's men. And when Robin's reaction, or Kevin Costner, the way that he played it out, he's holding it up and he jerks and then pulls his sword, and then he puts the spyglass. He's like, shakes the spyglass and looks. And then he looks, and then he's just playing with the sword, and he's like, "How can I not touch them and stuff?" And I just love the line that Azim has. He's like, he asks the perfect question: How did your uneducated kind ever take Jerusalem? You know? And so it's a good question, because it's like, how did your uneducated kind ever take Jerusalem? So then they get down and they're like, unfortunately, our Nottingham soldiers are on their way here. Well, I've done nothing. We may have killed some of the sheriff's men. Oh, okay, so you're outlaws. Yeah, basically. And so she's like, well, you can't stay. No, that's my horse, because Azim just got on the horse on her horse with Duncan, because Duncan is blind. And she's like, you have to go. I will basically keep them occupied. And when they arrive in and she's talking to him, she's like, stop him. They took my horse right in front of Maid Marian. And he's like, thank you, Maid. Great seeing you again. And then he swats her on the backside with his sword, and you see the kind of reaction. And it's these funny little moments that are great. And then you see Guy of Gisborne, you're not consorting with or sheltering outlaws, are you, my lady? And she's like, they're thieves, imbecile. And he's like, a crown to the man who brings me Locksley's head, my lady. And then she just laughs it off and walks in. And there's a nice chase where Robin's horse is tagged by a crossbow bolt. And they get to the border of Sherwood Forest. So they're like, my horse or your horse is lame and mine carries 2 riders. We cannot, or we won't outrun them. And so they decide to take refuge in the woods. And Duncan says, Sherwood is haunted, my lord. I'd rather take chances with the ghosts than become ghosts ourselves. I mean, there is some great writing and great lines in this movie, and it truly is underappreciated in my opinion, because these lines are they work even in a periodical time. They actually took the time to use periodical language, you know? They didn't modernize it in any way, and they truly did make it look timeless, but also of that time that it needed to be in. So we get into the Sherwood Forest, and Guy tries to entice Robin out, calling him the son of a devil worshipper and how his father died like a coward, and he cursed your name, saying that you should have been or calling you a stuck pig and all that stuff. And Azim tells him, you will not do your father any honor by dying today. So we find out that Sherwood Forest is not haunted. It's just woodwinds, wind chimes, basically put to good use. And then we see them trying to cross the river later on, and we learn of the outlaws of Sherwood with Will Scarlet and John Little. And I gotta say, Nick Brimble, who plays Little John, or John Little, is a very good actor in his own right. I've seen him in a couple other movies, and one movie that he actually did a small bit part was A Knight's Tale, where he plays the knight that Heath Ledger's character becomes an apprentice to. And he plays it so well. Nick Brimble is a very educated actor. And I truly praise his acting in this movie because he just does it so well. Excuse me. Throat's been dry for a bit. So we get to the battle on the river. And the fight between Little John and Robin Hood, they don't pull their punches, man. When they're hitting each other with the damn sticks, it looks very close, like they are hitting each other with the damn sticks. I mean, I'm pretty sure that they may have accidentally hit each other a couple times, you know? So when the fight takes place splashing over the rocks in the river, and they're saying that you need to pay the tax to cross the river and whatnot. So they see that Robin has his father's medallion. It is gold, or it's a gold and silver cross. And he's like, this is sacred to me. It's sacred to us too, laddie, mate. That'll feed us for a blooming month. And so he's like, you'll have to fight me for it. Well, fine, we'll fight you for it. And when they fight, they fight. And John Little doesn't know how to swim. So he's like, so when he takes the medallion from Robin, and then Robin goes back after him, and he gets it back from him. And he's like, do you yield? I can't bloody swim! Dunks him. He's like, do you yield? Yes, I yield. He's like, I'll take that back now. First, or you tell me your name first, Robin of Locksley. Now, what they cut to Will Scarlet at the mention of Robin of Locksley. So this basically is a good way of the director setting up something to be down the line later. Now, Will Scarlet hates Robin. In further discussions in the film, he doesn't like Robin at all. He tries he's confrontational. He hates him with a passion. And he even mentioned something that other people wouldn't have known. He's like, what's the son of a devil worshipper doing or being an outlaw anyway, and you're just a spoiled rich man, you know? It's like, how the hell would you know about that unless you know him on another level? Which it does come to play later on, the truth of who Will Scarlet is. And it doesn't spoil it too easily because you need the pieces of this puzzle. And later on, those pieces kind of fall into place. And it's really good storytelling. So that night, there's small merriment with how John Little basically is reacting to or telling him you're getting introduced to the characters like Bull and others. And we then get to Alan Rickman afterward. So Alan Rickman's character is a devil worshipper, and his acting is very good in his character. His vanity belies that childish air about him, which then goes to him talking to the witch, where he has to pretend, or he worships at the devil worship altar. Then he's like, I have to play the good sheriff and go to church. It's Sunday and whatnot. And so also Robin is going to church to see if they give alms to the poor still. Now, he meets with Marion after a corrupted Sunday mass. I mean, you can tell that this bishop is squarely in line with Nottingham and basically is in his pocket as well. So Robin meets with Marion posing as a blind beggar. And I love how she's like, or she gives him some information. And then she's like, Robin, will you do something for me? What? Take a bath. Bath. And she's like, mm-hmm. And it's really nice. It's innocent, but it's also works to something further down the road in the movie. So then he goes to the bishop's quarters. He's like, these are my private quarters. Find a friar to take your confession. And then he pokes the bishop. He's like, ah! And he's like, I see a man who was once a boy before me. And he tells Robin all the while while Nottingham is downstairs basically trying to woo Maid Marian, the bishop tells Robin Hood that his father did sign a confession, and he did say that he worshipped the Dark One. He said, I must go before God with a clear conscience. And Robin calls him out on it. He's like, you lie. And as he's going to leave, he opens the door and he sees, well, Sheriff of Nottingham. And he's like, there shall be no blood spilt in the house of God. And, well, these two hate each other. Now, they haven't met each other personally, but they hate each other. And then when Robin cuts his face, or the sheriff's face, it's like, oh shit, you know? So then all the men get in there and he goes up into the opening of the room above, and he's like, and he tells him, Locksley, I'm going to cut your heart out with a spoon. So it begins, because this was his intention. He wants the sheriff on edge. He wants a price on his head to be so big that the people will eventually see the evil of Nottingham. So when he says, so it begins, that's basically him basically saying, now I am under your skin. And he escapes and he gets out and he steals a bag of bread for the Sherwood outlaws, and as well as his friend Duncan. And he's like, you just took he also stole the sheriff's horse. And it's nice, each of these combat scenes, the choreography is actually very well done. You could tell that these people are taking all the right measures to be safe, which is very important nowadays because of what happened to Helena Hutchins and in the Alec Baldwin situation. Luckily, no firearms are in this film, but there are still flying arrows and whatnot because this is also a slight archery film as well. So Robin's intentions are then made clear. He's like, "Do you plan on joining us, mate?" "No, I intend to lead you." And it's like, oh shit. So then we go back to Nottingham, and he's like, Guy Gisborne is there. He's like, "Why a spoon, cousin? Why not a sword or an axe?" He's just not smart, you know? And he's like, "It's dull, you idiot. It will hurt more." And so he tells the guy, "Now sew, and keep the stitches small." You see more of that vain arrogance and that childishness in him. So, we then see Nottingham's retribution to raise the taxes and to root out anyone who may be sheltering Robin Hood. So we see Nottingham soldiers going through town to town. He's like, you hear a guy of Gisborne asking a woman, "Where's your mate? The one they call Little. Died last winter. Burn it down." And he's telling people, or the people are like, "Could you, or please spare some, or stop the slaughter? It's like, we need some of these things to survive the winter." And he's like, "Do you know the Sherwood outlaw? Robin of the Hood?" "Yeah." "Pray he's found before winter." And so the people whose homes were just burnt down by the sheriff's men all go into Sherwood Forest. And the people blame Robin because that was the intention of the sheriff, to turn the people against Robin Hood, or Robin of the Hood, as they call him. So then Will Scarlet tries to keep the crowd angry at him, and he's like, "You know what? Well, you're nothing but a coward." So as he's walking away, Will was about to throw a knife at him, or throw a knife into his back, but Wolf, the boy, stops him. And he's like, that's when he does a quick pull back, draw, shoot, and puts an arrow through Will's hand. Now, how you doing, Riot Kitty? Good to see you. Also, Tim's Talk. Good to see you. It is Prince of Thieves. I just saw the chats. I'm sorry, I had 2 minutes behind. But yes, it is Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, an extended edition. So we get the arrow basically with the glove that he had. It left enough of a space right here to put the arrow square in to make it look like it went into his hand. So, yeah, it was a nice little movie trick, but it was one that actually works very well. So, we then see the, or after that, he tells the very hard truths to these people. You want this to end? Yes. Do you want to go home? Yes. Well, then we have to stop fighting amongst ourselves. We have to turn to the people, or we have to use what our wits to fight back. We are free men. And as long as we're free, we can live off of the land. What we have nothing to eat. What is out there that the forest cannot provide, you know? Robin Hood rallies these people, and he uses sound logic and the promise of freedom to do it. And while they see the training montage, you see how they go from simple farmers to warriors, how they are shooting at the their archery and the building of the arrows and whatnot. And you see them shooting their first shots at the dummies, and those arrows are missing wildly. You also see the arrows just bouncing off the dummies, and you see the worried look on Robin's face. But then you also see Azim teaching them how to use, or teaching them sword techniques with sticks. And you then see how they further progress until they are shooting very well. And it really is a great scene. It really is a great montage, so to speak. I see. Never seen this one. I've seen Disney one and the one from the 2010s, I think, where he, for some reason, kind of looked like Green Arrow from the CW. Yeah, I heard that they made a more serious Robin Hood movie back in the 2010s. I haven't seen it, though, but I do know that it was a pretty good one, from what I hear. So then we get the famous arrow split shot where Robin Hood shoots the arrow and you see the arrow flying through and then strikes his own arrow in a tree, which splits it. That is actually one of the more famous shots of the movie. It's an iconic shot, which there are several in this movie. The flaming arrow shot is another one later on. So we then get to the scribe talking to the sheriff of Nottingham and how he's being vexed because of all the stuff that Robin is doing. He's robbing from the rich to give to the poor. And he also stops a church from being robbed by the sheriff's men. And he tells him, he's like, you go back and you tell the sheriff, whatever harm he does to these people, I will return to him I will turn on to him tenfold. It's tenfold retribution. So he ups the price for Robin Hood's head, which is 500 gold pieces, and then it goes to 1,000 pieces. And he's talking to the scribe, and he's like, the scribe basically, he's like, upping the price won't do any good. The people love him. The people are with him. And he's like, let me get this straight. I raise the taxes and am forced to hurt these people, which they know, and they love him? Yeah, sorry about this. Alrighty, then fine. No more scraps to the orphans and lepers, or call off all merciful beheadings, and call off Christmas. It's like, oh, Jesus Christ. So then he goes down and he talks to the witch again. And she tells him that the scribe has gotten under his skin. And he's like, the scribe cut out his tongue. And so he actually goes and cuts out the scribe's tongue. Now, you don't see it. It's an off-screen thing. But you see that this woman has a lot of influence over the sheriff's actions, which comes to play later on. So then we are introduced to Friar Tuck, the last of the merry men, and he's played by the actor Michael McShane, and this Friar Tuck is one of the best Friar Tucks I've ever seen, because he just gives off an air of a very lush of a friar, a man of God who has found his vices in a lot of beer, and it's brilliant acting and comedy. And when the Guy of Gisborne is basically escorting Friar Tuck through Sherwood Forest, that's when a plan to steal more of the riches is taken. And then the friar is knocked out, and they take his carriage. And they also hide behind walls of litter that they build up. And they also have these... Is there such a thing as merciful beheadings? Yes, there is. Back then, they considered it back then, people starved to death in dungeons. Beheadings were considered merciful because they killed the person right up. But yes, the beheadings were basically a merciful death. They killed you quick. Or that's how they perceived it, now that science knows that you're still alive for 7 minutes after your head leaves your shoulders. There's enough oxygen in your brain for 7 minutes of pure agony. So it's no longer very merciful nowadays, or even back then, because the fact is that's still what happened back then. So then we get, the friar wakes up and he's like, oh my gosh, he's like, you're Robin in the Hood. I mistook you for common bandits and yada yada. And he's like, so would you care to share some of your brew with us? And he's like, oh, you want to share? And then he kicks him in the face and he's like, you'll have to take it off my dead body. And he tries getting off, and he's like, let it be known, Robin of the Hood, that you were bested by a simple Friar Tuck. And he gets knocked out of his own freaking carriage from a tree branch. And he leans up and he's like, oh, the Lord works in weird ways. And so he's like, do you yield over my dead body? And then he starts attacking freaking Robin, trying to bite his leg. He's like, it'll be a cold day in hell. And he starts trying to get his leg, and Robin's telling his men to shoot him and shit. It's so fucking hilarious. So then the men rally Friar, but yeah, canceling Christmas is going too far. Now that's monster. Yeah, it is. It really is. I mean, they're trying to cancel it now, but yeah. They have the friar basically lashed to the yoke of the carriage to carry Robin and the carriage back to their hideout. It honestly sounds like a fight I had in middle school. Oh, well, hey, I've seen girls get very nasty and start biting each other too. I've actually seen all that stuff too. Back in high school, it's nothing new. And after Friar he's religious. He's like, thank you, Lord, for teaching me this lesson in humility, So Friar accepts the offer to join the Sherwood Outlaws. We need a faithful man of God to help keep these Christian outlaws, keep a good head on their shoulders, you know? So then we get Maid Marian and her lady in waiting going through Sherwood Forest, and Bull and Much are the two that try to stop her. And they're like, small little donation. Oh, okay, if that's all you need. Wait, we're just doing what and they stop them with knives to their throats. They're like, we're just doing our job from our employer. Well, who's your employer? Robin Hood. Take me to him. And he's down by a waterfall, which is the shot for the ladies. His ass, or Kevin Costner's ass, is full butte for all the women to see. And we then get they get led to the encampment where where Wolf is doing a good job in archery next to his father, and he's like, that's very good, Wolf, but can you shoot amidst distraction? And he does a dirty trick, and he basically flits Wolf's ear as he's shooting, which causes him to shoot wide. And so Maid Marian actually challenges Robin, and he's like, can you? And they're like, okay, yeah, and whatnot. So he gets ready to shoot, and his concentration starts going into himself with the concentration, with all of his men yelling behind him, sneezing, coughing, and doing all sorts of things. Then she gets up and blows on his ear, and he shoots even more wild than Wolf did. And she's like, well done. Well done. So then after that, he takes her up to the room where all the gold is. And she's like, have you brought me here to brag? And he tells her, this is blood money, Marian. We're trying to find out what this gold is being used for. And we believe that it is being used to conspire against the king, to buy his enemy, or to buy alliances with his enemies. King Richard's not here to protect his country. He's fighting in the Crusades. So what if he comes home and his country has been overthrown? That's basically was the worry. And we then have a nice night of merriment where he's explaining what he does and why he's doing what he is doing. And we then hear we see this small scene where this girl goes up to Azim, Morgan Freeman's character, and she asks him, did God paint you? And he's like, did God paint me? Or certainly, yes. She's like, why? Because Allah loves wondrous variety. And that is where they stop that scene in the theatrical. But he goes further on to say, just like you have brown hair and brown eyes. But then Friar Tuck comes in and he's like, do not speak to her with your heathen ways. And he tells him, is your God, or is my Allah, or a servant of Abraham, or is Abraham not a servant of your God as he is of mine? And Friar Tuck doesn't like what he heard, and he doesn't like that there is parallels to the Muslim religion and to the Christian religion. So he's like, he just takes the kid out and leads her away. So while they're then there's conversations between Marian, but then we hear Wolf coming down during the merriment telling Little John that his wife is dying, Fanny is dying. And we get to the birthing scene where Fanny Little is 9 months pregnant, ready to give birth. Azim is in there, and he's feeling her pregnant belly. And he tells her, your baby has not turned. We have to do something to get her out, or or if we do nothing, the baby and the mother will surely die. Now, Friar Tuck is fully against this. He's like, do not let this barbarian do anything. He will kill her. He is full-blown biased against Azim. Now, Robin Hood, who knows Azim would not harm this woman, he vouches for Azim, and he sends the friar out, and John agrees to let Azim do what he can to help save the baby and whatnot. And you hear her scream. Basically, they have to do a C-section. And back then, well, we all know that there's no pain meds and whatnot. They give her a bit. They tell them to have needle and thread and a knife and water. And so when she starts screaming, the boy comes out. And Little John wants to go in, but the boy stops and he's like, no, father, no. And he's like, get out of my way, boy. And so the baby is born, and then afterward, John comes out celebrating his son, and there's a celebration of life dance, more merriment, so to speak. And Azim goes out, and the friar, he apologizes. He's like, God has certainly shown me that I am humble, but I am not worldly. And he asks for forgiveness to Azim. And hey, Maza, good to see you. How you doing? We're discussing Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, the extended edition. And so he's like, join me for a brew, shall we? And he's like, I must decline. It is not permitted. He's like, fine, you drink, or I drink, you talk. You know, it's a brilliant little, it is truly a brilliant line. Now, the next day, Marion has to go back. And Robin asks to send a message to the king, to Richard, because one, she's the king's cousin. And two, he wants Duncan, his blind servant, to go with Marion. And there is a burgeoning romance between Marion and Robin. As we all know, Robin and Marion love each other very much. So, but it's not too overt until the end of the movie. And she's like, I will take him. And while she gets into a boat, Duncan says, I may be blind, man, or he fancies you. I may be blind, but there are some things I can still see. And it really is a nice way of how they do this scene, or basically Nottingham's fear of being thwarted. He goes down, talking to the witch, and the witch tells him, recruit the beasts as allies. And he's like, beasts from the north? You want me to recruit the Celts? The Celts, basically the Scottish barbarians of the time. And then she gives him the suggestion to marry into the royal family, which is through Marion, and basically have a son on the throne. So then we have treachery from the church, where Marion wants to send the letter to Richard, but the church's scribe takes her lady in waiting as well, because she wants the lady of waiting to confirm the handoff to Richard. He's like, my horse is favoring its leg, and she goes down to check it, and he clocks her on the head with a club. So yes, now there is treachery, and she's taken by Nottingham soldiers. Well, they forgot about Duncan, and Duncan goes on, but he's also caught by them as well, or seen trying to escape with them. and it leads to the Battle of Sherwood Forest. Now, the Battle of Sherwood Forest, where the Celts have been recruited and such, this is before the Battle of Sherwood. The extended edition shows the sheriff actually. I find Robin Hood and Merrin's relationship adorable in the media that I've seen them in. Yeah. In the other movies, they are very much in love with each other, quick on. In this one, it's a burgeoning relationship. It builds into something, but it's not the forefront of the story, which is a good way of telling the story, because it shows, well, nowadays, that women, or that love can bloom late, in a movie. So Sheriff Nottingham bribes the nobles and also tells them that we have allied with the Celts. And he's like, well, what do the Celts have that we do not? And he has the lead of the Celts take a burning log and burn it into his fist. The man is also a freaking mountain of a man, too. So it's like, holy shit. Okay, there we go. So then we go to where Duncan leads Sherwood, or Nottingham's men, into Sherwood Forest. They followed him, and he was dying because they took the Maid Marian. And he told them just in time before the attack. And during this attack, you see the Celts charge Robin's people. And if you look very closely, you see that some of these people are wearing jeans. So there's a huge problem there. Denim wasn't created in the wasn't a thing in the 1100s. So the battle does go to Robin Hood early on, but then we see the flaming arrows and the catapults get brought in, and the tide turns for the worse. You see the plight of John's wife, and slightly cheesy acting there, where she's like, "Go save yourself, John." He's like, "Not without you." And she tells him, "Go, John." And he screams, "Never." They're yelling across a huge gap between them. And so Robin has to save them, and the rope he's using is on fire above him. So he saves Fanny, gets her and her infant son to John, and he's like, "Go without me, or don't wait for me, I'll follow you out." Well, at this point, their other son, Wolf, gets taken, as does Will Scarlet, who also gets taken, as well as other ones get taken as prisoners. Now, there's a shot where you see Alan Rickman kind of biting into his glove like this, like checking something in his teeth, as a flaming arrow just whips by his face. I don't think that was intentional, but they kept it in because it just works to the vanity of Sherwood, or of not Sherwood, but Nottingham. And after this, Robin Hood tries to flee or tries to swing out so he can get out of there, but the rope is burned too much and it snaps. Now everybody thinks he's dead because, well, he disappeared. Now, we also see that the sheriff confronts Marian about the letter to her cousin, the king, and he blackmails her into marrying him against her will. He threatens the children. He's like, "Think of these children, these orphans and whatnot. And once we are married, they will be allies to our throne. I cannot have them growing up as enemies, and I will not have them grow up as enemies." So basically, he is telling her that if you marry me, these children will live. If you don't marry me, I will kill these children. this basically shows you the true extent of the evil that is Nottingham. Hold on one second, folks. So yeah, we then go down where, oh shoot, I did forget to talk about Guy of Gisborne and how before that, after the friar is taken by Robin Hood, Guy of Gisborne basically reports on his failure, and he gets killed or the sheriff kills him for his failure. And it really is a good shot because they do great camera work. They do like close-ups and whatnot. And while that might be jarring to some people, it can actually work to serve the purpose of the film's quality, which in some ways it actually does. And when after he blackmails, so then getting back on track, after he blackmails Marion, he goes down to interrogate the prisoner. And I love how he's like, what about you? Do you want pain or death? And the guy's like, death. Torture him. What about you? Pain or death? Pain. Torture him too. You see, and then he goes up to a third guy. You see, it makes no difference to me what you guys pick. I'm going to torture you either way until you all tell me if Robin of Locksley is dead or alive. And I have a feeling he might be alive because he can't confirm that he's dead, even though he took the medallion that was the Locksley medallion and hands it to Maid Marian to let her know that he is dead. Basically telling her, yes, he's dead. How can he protect you guys all? No, you know? So then Will, who's hanging upside down, he's like, I can kill him for you. And Wolf is there like, no, Will, don't. And, well, Alan Rickman's acting here just worse. He runs up to Will. He's like, why should I trust you? He's like, yeah, no reason to trust me. But I hate him more than everyone else, you know? And I'm one of his men. I can get close to him. And Wolf's like, he knows you always hated him, traitor. And both Will and Alan Rickman tell Wolf to shut up. They're like, shut up. And so they come to an agreement, and he's like, if you let me go, I can kill him. And if I fail, you can kill him. It's a win-win. You don't, or either way, you know? And so Alan Rickman just turns his head sideways to try to tell him. He's like, if you fail, I will cut out your lying tongue. And so then he cuts him down, and he's like, lash him. Sorry, but we have to make it look convincing, you know? So it's a really nice thing. It's like, they start burying their dead. Robin Hood is in Sherwood, and he's burying the dead. And then Will comes back in, and John Little, or Little John, tackles him, starts beating on him, and he's like, I'm going to wallop you. You don't escape the sheriff unless he's lying in your pockets. Basically, he's accusing him of treason, or basically he's accusing him of being a turncoat, you know? And then he sees that he's been lashed all over his body and cut up. And they're like, bugger me. And he's like, let him speak. And so Will Scarlet basically tells him, he's like, I come with a message. Our sheriff of Nottingham is going to hang our friends in the square tomorrow. And they're like, what about my son? The boy too. And he looks at Locksley and he's like, I want to know if you're going to stand with us and keep your word, or are you the spoiled little rich man or rich boy that I always knew you to be? And Will finally reveals the hatred because Robin, he's like, have I wronged you in another life? What is this intolerable hatred you have for me? And Will can't handle it anymore. He tells him the truth. He's like, the fact that your father, or that our father, loved you more than me. Now, that conversation that Marion and Robin were having, I didn't touch on, but I should have. That is my folly. So I'll actually touch on it here, because he was telling Marion about how his father and him did not part on good terms, that when his mother died, he blamed his father because his father found comfort in the arms of another woman who was a peasant woman, which may be or it could have been an easy just line or throwaway lines, or it could lead to something else. In this case, it was another piece of the puzzle. So when Will Scarlet basically tells him, I'm the son of the peasant woman that your father replaced after after his wife died. And Robin Hood's not having this. He's like, you lie. It's not a lie. You ruined my life. Because Robin's anger, his anger at his father forced his father to cut ties with the woman who was pregnant with his son, or with, at the time, an illegitimate son. So yes, while Robin lived in privilege and was never going to forgive his father, even though he just won his father's affections back, or forced his father's affections to be brought back to him, Will Scarlet suffered because he was the son of a peasant and of a nobility. So he could have no real title. Back then, if you were a bastard son, you had no legitimate claim. And so, yes, Will Scarlet tells him, and the writing is very good in here, I have more reason to hate you than anyone, but I found myself daring to believe in you. And so I ask you again, brother, will you finish what you started? Will you fight for us? And will you stand with us? And so, yes, they unite as brothers. He's like, I have a brother, and I promise you, I will fight for you, and I will fight with you. It is a very emotional scene that they have together, but it works. It is one that is needed, because this hatred that Will Scarlet has for him, it is a very visceral hatred and a very personal hatred. And the way that it is revealed, and the way that it is acted out in this movie, it's award worthy. It really is. So after this, they do a cut to an extended scene where the sheriff is celebrating his engagement, and he then is the scribe is asking, or is writing how is your bride? And he's like, she's very happy and whatnot, and yada yada. And this is basically after Mortiana the witch had his tongue cut out, so you think his tongue is cut out. And then in his drunken stupor, the sheriff sees one of the peek holes that she uses. And he's like, have you been, or he thinks the squire's spying on him. He's like, have you been spying on me and whatnot? And the squire is deathly afraid. And he's like, oh, if it's not you, who else would help or hollow up? And then he puts it together. And he confronts the witch. And she then floors the sheriff. He's like, or she tells him, I birthed you with my own body. I'm your mother and you are my son. Everyone always calls me freak, but when you wed Marion and when you put your seed in her, or I will no longer be a freak. Or without me, you're nothing. And it's true. Without her, the sheriff was nothing. He hates her, and he just walks away completely cowed by this revelation that Mortiana the witch is his mother. In the and this is extended edition stuff. In the theatrical, you don't ever get that relationship. Yes, these are some soap opera twists, you know. So moving on, we get to one of my favorite scenes where Azim takes a little bit of powder or black powder and just casts it into a fire in front of him. And Friar Tuck is standing there, and you see the poof of gunpowder go up. And he's like, whoa! And you get that line, which became the hint or the bonus hint of this stream. Truly, you are a wizard. And he's like, the magic is within the black powder, or the mystery is in the black powder. And we're getting the plan of raiding Nottingham's square to rescue the prisoners. So Fanny, who is Little's wife, insists that she joins the 6 that are going, and John's not having it. He's like, you might, or she's like, I birthed 8 kids and I'm not going to let one of them die and whatnot. All we're missing is I am your father, right? And John Little, he's like, you might as well be minding the other 7. They're with me, Mom. And he's like, oh my God. Robin, tell her that she can't come. Fanny, you're going to take up position here. There's no, or she's like, yeah, I am. I'm not. She wasn't taking no for an answer. This is one of those strong woman moments, folks. She doesn't have to be a great warrior, but as a mother, she is indeed strong enough to want to join the fray in order to save one of her children, you know? And it's a small bit that she plays where she does play it up a little, or with some comedy in the scene. So while they're in the square to celebrate the engagement and whatnot, you see Robin Hood smearing horse dung on himself. And all the pieces of being the preparations and whatnot, Bull acting like he is, or dressing up like a Celt so that he could keep the reinforcements from coming in. Azim basically being a leper, or covered in white rags of a leper. And they're bringing the powder in. Nobody's allowed in with weapons. It's all set up perfectly so that to ensure that everything goes off without a hitch. Well, that isn't always the case. And as the boy Wolf is being held out or hauled out, he sees Will and he attacks Will and calling him traitor and that he'll kill him and whatnot. And Will has a sword in there because Fanny drops some swords down to him. And Bull, who walk by and they just grab the swords. And then this guard comes up and she's like, oh, I do love me a good hanging. And I'm just, or they're like, well, what's this? Oh, that's just firewood. And John Little basically grabs the guy and just throws him over the back end. And she's like, hello, my lover. Just nonchalantly, you know. It really is a great scene. All of the prep is truly great. And they're like, well, what is this? These are just passing out some libations. And it's one of the barrels full of gunpowder. He's like, come on, my leper friend. Is this your finger? Get him out of here, you know? They start freaking out and whatnot. And one of my burns is starting to crisp out. But yeah, I have a couple burns on my fingers. So, because the fight between Will and Wolf started or attracted the attention of the sheriff, he's like, "What's going on?" "Oh, the turncoat. Did you find Hood or did you find the Hood or Loxley?" He's like, "I got back there, but he was already dead." He's like, "You sure? You found his body?" "No, I found a grave." And then they reveal that he had a sword on him, and they tell him string him up with the others. Treachery of Nottingham, you know? And so, because they string him up, they don't have an extra noose, and they put him down on his knees, and he's like, "There's always more room," or "There's always room for one more," because they're all laughing at him, and he's like, "My lord, it seems that there's no more room. I guess I'm going to have to respectfully decline." I mean, freaking Christian Slater has great roles back in the 90s. He really did a great job with some of the roles that he had because they're just really good. And so this one scene where where the executioner tells him, he's like, "There's always room for one more." You actually see some spit go right onto freaking Slater's face, and it's like, oh god, that's disgusting. So when the hanging starts, we get to Robin Hood having to save the boy from hanging, and he shoots one shot. He hits the arrow, but it doesn't, or he hits the rope, but it doesn't break. So he has to shoot it again and has it broken again. And the executioner looks up at the or down at Loxley, and Azim shoots a couple of the barrels to blow up a couple of places, shocking the hell out of everybody. And then the sheriff says, "What are you waiting for? Get on with it." And they kick all the other people to hang. So, yeah. The Battle of Nottingham House starts. And one of the nobles in back of Nottingham is like, "Is this your idea of control?" "Shut up, you twit." It's like fucking hilarious. He's like, "And you, we're still gonna get married." I mean, there are some great shots, plus the iconic arrow shot or flaming arrow shot of Kevin Costner, which is actually on the VHS tapes and some, or in DVDs, where he shoots to save Will Scarlet's life because they pull an axe to take his head because they can't hang him. And they can't shoot the barrel underneath him because that's also a black powder barrel. So you see Kevin pull up, draw, and shoot, and you see the slow motion of the arrow hit or go and hit the executioner in the forehead. And so it's like, yeah, there you go. So then the reinforcements are indeed thwarted. They cannot come in. And Azim sees that all the Englishmen or everybody's leaving after they got rescued. And he sees that Robin is still fighting. And so he calls them out. He's like, "I am not one of you, but I choose to fight for freedom. And I fight with Robin Hood. So if you will be free men or free people, join us now. Fight and fight with fight for Robin Hood." And it's a nice little rallying cry, and they all do start joining the fray. So then we get out to the catapult where Robin and Azim are talking, and he's like, "Is she worth dying for?" "Very much, yes." A callback to the conversation of Azim and Robin when Azim was arrested. It was for the love of a woman who was worth dying for, as he said back then. So they're like, "Okay, well, launch." Now the launch over the or upward to get them over the wall. The footage of them going upward is actually shot in reverse because it's actually them falling downward. But it really does look like they were launched upward, you know? And it's a little bit of movie magic. So then they get over the wall, and Will Scarlet drops the F me. He's like, fuck me, he cleared it. And so they get in to try to get to Marion and the sheriff. Sorry, I'm blanking out, folks. I am getting tired. And we then get to the chapel, or the satanic chapel, and the bishop is there, and he's like, marry us. And the witch is also there, and she's like, or when Marion spits in the sheriff's face, she's like, I'll never marry you, and spits in his face. The witch goes up and smacks her, and he's like, that's my wife, you crone. And so she feels Marion up her stomach and private area quickly, and she's like, she's ripe. You must take her now. And he's like, I will not. I will take her when we are properly wed. You've always interfered, and I will, or for once in my life, I want something pure, you know? This was a bit of the more adult theme that we show, where she just literally feels up Marion, basically telling her that, yeah, this is ripe. And while that they are attempting to or having the bishop marry them against her will and whatnot, he then starts to attempt to marry her, or rape her, basically, to consummate the marriage, so to speak. And you see the freaking witch is excited as hell seeing all this. And while Robin and Azim are bashing against the door to try to bust it open, the witch leaves, and she's afraid of the painted man. As she said in the beginning of the movie, the painted man, he haunts my dreams. She must kill them both. She stabs him with a spear, and she's like, the painted man, the witch. And they recognize each other, even though they've never seen each other, you know? And she's like, please don't. You wouldn't harm an old lady, would you? And so she tries to kill him again, but he ends up throwing her, or Azim throws her across the room. She charges, and he turns the spear on her, and it goes right through her. And it's like, how the hell is she alive? She just runs out of the scene. It's like that spear went through her. How the hell is she still alive? It makes you wonder, you know? There are problems with this movie, as I have said. Well, I honestly wouldn't know how to respond to that. Yeah, right? And so after they are married and the bishop escapes, you see Friar Tuck come into the bishop's chambers, where he's loading up on gold and other stuff. And he's like, so you sold your soul to Satan, your grace. You accused innocent men of witchcraft and led them to die and burn and whatnot. And so the bishop's like, Brother Friar, you would not strike a fellow man of the cloth. He's like, no, you're right. I'm going to help you pack for your journey. And he's like, you're going to need plenty of gold. You're a very rich man. Oh, and here's 30 pieces of silver to pay the devil on your trip to hell. And then Friar Tuck shoves the bishop out the window. And that's a high tower that he falls from. And it's like, oh, damn, dude. Because even back then, yes, some people of the cloth would get their hands dirty if it was for a righteous cause. So we then get Robin fighting Nottingham because he busts in right after they've been married and whatnot. And just before he busts in, you see freaking Alan Rickman spread Marion's legs with his feet. And it's like, oh my God, man. And he crashes in. Do you mind, Locksley? We've just been married. So then they get ready to fight. They draw swords, and Nottingham draws the sword that Locksley's father had. He's like, you recognize this sword? It belonged to your father. How appropriate that I use it to send you to meet him. And he tells him, I am not afraid of my father's sword. Really? Slices Locksley or Robin right here, and he's like, now we're even because of the cut on his face. And so they have a very wild, I would call that sword fight a more wilder one. Yes, it's choreographed well. And Marion, while she's worried for Robin and she's kind of damsel in distressing over on the side, she does kick something over to trip up Alan Rickman, and Alan Rickman backs up, and Maid Marian's backed up to like right here beside him. And when Locksley swung, he took some hair off of Nottingham, and then he lifts up the hair with the sword, and he's like, if I have to, I'll take you piece by piece. And so Nottingham grabs Marian, kisses her, and says, I'll be the only one taking things today. And so they finished fight where, because of the Nottingham sword being of a far greater steel quality, he cuts right through the sword that Locksley is using, or Robin is using, and he pins him. And he's like, any last words? Or he's like, get ready. He looks to Maid Marian, and then Robin pulls out a dagger that Maid Marian gave to him, and stabs Nottingham, and it's the most dramatic death ever. He's just walking around and then just looks up and then just keels over. And you think that's all, folks. You think that's it. Well, it's not, because somehow the damn witch got back into that room and is charging Locksley. And so Azim finally busts down the other door and throws his humongous freaking sword at the witch and kills her because the sword impales her and flies her back again. It's like, oh, Jesus, damn. And then he tells him, now my vow is fulfilled. So then we cut to the wedding between Robin and Marian. And Friar is presiding over the wedding. And he gives the speech. If there's anyone who would object to this wedding, speak now or forever hold your peace. Now, before he pronounces them, you get a hold. I will not allow this wedding to continue, from King Richard, who is played by Sean Connery. Now, it is a great touch because Sean Connery once played Robin Hood, and he objects to this wedding. He's like, and Robin is like, Your Highness, please. And he's like, unless I get to give away the bride. You look radiant, cousin. And he gives him away, and he's like, Friar, continue. And it really is a touching moment. And so Friar finishes, husband and wife, you may kiss the bride. And then you see the bride being kissed and all that. And you see Friar Tuck, he's like, get out of it. There's so much, or we're wasting good celebration time. And then he just laughs his head off. He's just laughing his head off. And we then cut to credits, and it's Bryan Adams, Bryan Adams, Everything I Do. And And that's basically the movie. Now to the scores where I give the objective and whatnot. Objectively speaking, the theatrical edition is an 8.5 out of 10, where the theatrical edition for the extended edition is actually 8 out of 10. And the reason why is because of the inconsistencies that it causes with the extended edition, which I didn't cover because I'm an idiot, so I will cover it here. They find the scribe that had his tongue cut out in the extended edition, where where Robin asks him, "Where is she?" And he says, "That way up the stairs." How could he have talked without his tongue, So yes, it does create that major inconsistency. Certainly not a more dramatic death than that of one Turkish action movie with that dude flailing around for 10 minutes and screaming. Yeah, I've seen some pretty dramatic deaths, but this one is one of those top teners, So, objectively, yes, this film is about an 8 out of 10 with the major inconsistencies and with some continuity errors and, some very loose wardrobe choices with the jeans and whatnot. But subjectively, it is a 9 out of 10, the extended edition, because yes, while it is very enjoyable and I do absolutely love it, that inconsistency does harm the film. So it does get a point off. Now, moviegoer, I would also say it is a 9 out of 10. This movie is a slow burn. It is 2.5 hours long, or 5 minutes over 2.5 hours, so 2 minutes, 35 seconds. But it is a very fun movie. So yes, Riot Kitty, it is a fun movie. It's a slow burn. It's 2.5 hours, like I said, but it is well worth it. And I truly like the semi-realism that they can put into this movie. And honestly, it's one that I really do recommend to people. And that is going to lead us to the end of this mystery review stream. Thank you to Riot Kitty, Memes of Destruction, Netcat, and many others who have come in. Junebug, Jazz Carpenter, Tim's Talk. Thank you all for joining. And Maza as well. So yes, thank you all for tuning in tonight. I am going to be doing mystery reviews a lot more at night, depending on whether or not I continue to help my brother. So yes, and before we do go, I am going to find a movies to choose to do another mystery review on. So let's see here. What is a good one to do a mystery review for? No. That one, definitely. All right. I think I have my next choice. It's a 1985 film. It's the year that I was born. And let's see here. What would be a great or couple hints for you? I mean, if I name any of these actors off, it would give it totally away. So I can't name any of the actors. I will name the director, though. The first hint is John Hughes. And the second hint is, let's see here. Basket Case. So yes, John Hughes and Basket Case are going to be the two hints for the next mystery review. That will probably be next Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Stay tuned for this Friday, folks. I have another Star Wars versus stream of Darth Zana versus Darth Talon, 1985, and John Hughes. And basket case. Okay. So, yes, if you know it, you'll know it. And if you don't, well, I'm pretty sure you'll enjoy the movie. Thank you to all who tuned in. Have a good night, Riot Kitty. And everyone else, this has been Orange Hat Reviews. Stay humble.